However, like our case in Libya, some jinn have also earned their reputation for manipulation, mischief, and malevolence. Despite Allah demanding they show respect to Adam, one particular powerful jinn named Iblis viewed himself as superior to the humans. He defied Allah and set about luring humans to the dark side, with an army of like-minded creatures following suit. In Christianity, Iblis is otherwise known as Satan. Before the birth of Islam in Arabia, there was a period of time called the Age of Jahilyyah, otherwise translated as the time of ignorance. Here, the region's mythology was dominated by creatures such as demons, gods, and demigods, an entire world of the unseen that existed just beyond the visual range of humans. Belief in these creatures as a point of worship was so widespread and embedded in the ancient Arabian culture that the monotheism that was once firmly established by the Abrahamic prophets in the region had been eclipsed by paganism. While in Islam, these deities and demigods are seen as nothing more than lifeless stone idols with zero power and influence, there is also the world of Jinn, anomalous entities that are so similar yet so different from the humans. Some say they have the power to imitate these gods and fool mankind into worshipping them. Although not all jinn are considered bad because of their supernatural abilities and the evil nature of some of them, Islam has completely outlawed communication between humans and them. This communication primarily takes place via magic, hence why magic is deemed un-Islamic by modern-day clerics. This belief dates back to a time just before the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ re-established a strict Abrahamic monotheism across the region. Before the rise of Islam, many jinn were also considered as gods or lesser deities and worshipped by the ancient Arabs. This was a time called the Age of Jahilyyah. So welcome to the supernatural horror of what was pre-Islamic Arabia. To gauge how widespread belief in these supernatural forces are today, a Pew Research University asked Middle Easterners and North Africans about witchcraft and the jinn. In most of the countries surveyed, roughly half or more Muslims affirm that jinn exist. However, belief in sorcery is somewhat less common, yet a small but significant minority do believe in the power of witchcraft and its practice, which is a concern to too many clerics and sociologists. Khalil Fadl, a prominent Egyptian psychiatrist, states that a sizable minority of Egyptians, including the high educated, were spending large amounts of money on sorcery and superstition, and were warned that growing superstition amongst Egyptians was threatening the country's national security. As this was becoming a national mental health issue, the statement was on the understanding that there is no actual supernatural power that possesses a risk to society, just that the belief in the supernatural can be dangerous. And while he is likely correct in his opinion, in neighboring Libya in 2017, the country faced an unprecedented large-scale anomalous event, where many people, including several government officials, believed that the jinn was responsible for the deaths of at least 33 people over several months, after it was summoned via a form of magic. To learn more about this crisis, Patreon subscribers, please remember to sign in for a bonus episode on how the Libyan media and authorities responded to this crisis during the summer of 2017. So where did this anomalous entity that terrorized Libya come from? And why are some governments across the MENA region so strict against communication with these creatures like it, be they malevolent or not? The answer lies in pre-Islamic Arabia. At one time, religion across the peninsula consisted of indigenous polytheistic beliefs, ancient Arabian Christianity, Judaism, and Zoroastrianism. At this time, among the pagan Arabs and Arabs whose belief in one God gradually evolved into a belief in many, there was not one specific pagan belief in the peninsula. For example, the religious beliefs and practices of the pre-Islamic nomadic Bedouin were distinct from those of the settled tribes of towns such as Mecca. Nomadic religious belief systems and practices are believed to have included totemism and veneration of the dead. Settled urban Arabs, on the other hand, are thought to have believed in a more complex pantheon of deities. This leads us to the realm of the Jinn and our modern and pre-modern understanding of them. As opposed to angels, and existing long before Allah created Adam, the Jinn are not inherently good nor evil, and are pretty much the same as us humans. They are mortal, like us, and in their dimension, which is believed to exist parallel to our own, they work, get married, have children, observe social customs, and eventually die. However, like our case in Libya, some Jinn have also earned their reputation for manipulation, mischief, and malevolence. Despite Allah demanding they show respect to Adam, one particular powerful Jinn named Iblis viewed himself as superior to the humans. He defied Allah and set about luring humans to the dark side, with an army of like-minded creatures following suit. In Christianity, Iblis is otherwise known as Satan. Apart from being made of fire, what separates Jinn from humans is that they are essentially higher dimensional entities, making them partially invisible to us, but leaving us very visible to them. While most have no interest in humans, others find great pleasure in interfering in the affairs of humanity, from playing mischievous pranks, to demonic possession, to even having the ability to fool entire cultures into worshipping them as gods. It is on the last point of fooling humans into worshipping them is perhaps why idol worship was so widespread throughout the region, and even in neighboring Africa and Persia. Before Islam demanded the belief and reliance in only one God, the Jinn were viewed as an almost tangible manifestation of these ancient deities. They also have the ability to appear as wild animals. Sacred animals played a role in pagan Arabian belief, as guests or clients of the gods, and as totems of particular tribes. The Bedouin believed that the gods were related to the Jinn, and the Jinn to the wild animals. Thus, the Jinn ultimately personified to them the hostile side of nature that was to be respected, worshipped, and feared. To list all notable Jinn would be impossible, but among the most known are the originally Jinnaya, the good and rewarding gods. The first one is Ashar, a North Arabian war god, whose cult was popular near Palmyra in southern Syria, depicted as an archer with a bow and seated on a horse. The second is Sa'd, a West Arabian god of good fortune, who was worshipped chiefly by the Bedouin tribe of Bani Kinana, who would visit his idol in order to obtain the god's blessings. And then there are the malevolent spirits. In pre-Islamic Northern Arabia, Ubaidah, or Abudas, as he was known to the Romans, was a king of the Nabatshian Arabs, who was also worshipped by them as a god after his death. He was the successor of al-Harith, and was famed for his victory against the Hasmonean kingdom in Judah. The Nabatshians worshipped Ubaidah as a protective deity against illness and misfortune. This practice of worshipping powerful kings and famous tribal chieftains being common among the pagan Arabs and other Semitic peoples. Al-Ra'i, meaning the one who sees, is the Arabian god of dreams and prophecy. All dreams were considered to be messages from the gods in pre-Islamic Arabia, and soothsayers specialized in interpreting them. This god was believed to be an all-seeing guardian that had its origins from the Jewish understanding of the god, Al-Roy, which translated from Hebrew means the seeing God. Al-Muhriq is an Arabian underworld god who was represented by a fierce deity at a red shrine and whose totem animal was the adult male lion. The worship of Al-Muhriq was mainly found in eastern Arabia and southern Iraq, where its cult was prominent among the Bedouin tribes of Banu Rabi'a, Abd al-Qais, and Bakr ibn Wa'il. This god was the Arabic counterpart of the earlier Babylonian god Nergal, both sharing the same attributes such as being deities of the underworld. Al-Muhriq, like his Babylonian counterpart Nergal, had a wrathful disposition. He was believed to send disease and plague if he was angry with the population. The name of the god means the burner, as he represented the scorching heat of the desert, in addition to the heat of disease and fire. Some Western scholars postulate that in pre-Islamic Arabia, including in Mecca, Allah was considered to be a deity among a polytheistic pantheon of gods. However, Islamic scholars clarify that the worship of Allah was passed down through Abraham and other prophets, but over time it became corrupted by pagan Arab traditions, especially by the pre-Islamic Meccans. Their notion of God was so egregious that they associated him with the deities of al-ʿUzzā, Manat, and al-Lāt, who they said were his daughters. A'udhu billah. This belief was a complete antithesis to the Abrahamic notion of one God, as the Quran itself condemns every kind of idol worship and anthropomorphizing of God with human attributes or any other created thing such as other humans, animals, the sun and moon, where it states, "And among his signs are the night and the day, and the sun and the moon. Do not bow to the sun nor to the moon, and only worship Allah who created them, if him it is that you serve." In much the same way, some early pagan Arabs had taken one of the Hebrew names and attributes of God Arroy, the seeing God, and turned it into its own separate deity. A similar corruption occurred with the name of Allah. This distortion compelled the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to aggressively remove the idols that were placed inside the Kaaba, hereby reintroducing an Abrahamic understanding of God back into the Arabian Peninsula, and effectively completely ending the age of polytheism in the region, realigning and reinforcing the Arab belief in one God with what was already established by the Jewish and Christian believers hundreds of years earlier. With this strict monotheism came restrictions about interacting with the Jinn, something that can primarily be done via magic, hence why real magic is completely frowned upon in the region. Today, in the 21st century, the war against the world of the unseen and with forces that were once merely considered as remnants of the pagan belief system is being actively engaged by regional governments and authorities. To Westerners, this may seem harsh. However, within Islam, given that it is understood that an essential part of magic requires an interaction with Jinn, and the type of Jinn most willing to interact with humans will likely be malevolent, protecting society from harm does not only mean guarding its citizens and residents from the natural, but also the supernatural. Patreon subscribers can see the full-length version of this episode, where we dig a little deeper into the types of Jinn out there, and the steps a couple of regional authorities have taken to restrict humans from interacting with them. So what do you think? Sound off in the comments and let's discuss. This was the most difficult voiceover I had to do. The vocabulary was just nasty, and I already posted some bloopers on Instagram on my Optimistic Arab page. Speaking of Optimistic Arab, I'm working on my next video to depict the movie Wonder Woman 1984 and how it shows the typical negative stereotypes often shown in Hollywood movies when it comes to representing Arabs. I'll also be discussing the concept of Orientalism as explained by the Palestinian author Edward Said. Until then, take care and stay safe.